Good morning. It's so good to see all of you. How are you? I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. Close your eyes for just a moment and imagine it's pitch dark, it's black, it's musty, it's warm, it's kind of smelly. Weeks go by as you start to hear all these unfamiliar sounds, the honking of cars, people talking and kids yelling, the fluttering of wings. After several weeks, a crack and a sliver of light starts to appear. As you open your eyes, you see the light peeking through the eggshell where you've been incubating for the last few weeks. Your parents have spent the last month building a nest, courting it with each other, and raising you and perhaps several other eggs. And congratulations, after about a week, your egg will hatch and you will emerge as a baby Brandt's cormorant. Give yourself a round of applause. You are a disgusting, beautiful, featherless little hatchling chick of a Brandt's cormorant. Your parents, with their beautiful blue cobalt throats, have been searching offshore, diving and foraging on all sorts of fish to feed you. Look to the person to your left. Look to the person to your right. Say hello to the other two eggs in your nest. One or both of them are probably going to die by the end of the month. But you might survive. Over the past few weeks, as they've been courtship rituals with each other, you look around and you see other nests, other hatchling chicks making their way into downy stage chicks, nearly fledged, and eventually will start to leave their nest and wander around as they grow their feathers and their plumage to take off for a bigger world. You're a Brandt's cormorant. What are you? You're a colonial seabird and water bird, endemic to the coast of the Pacific coast, all the way up from Alaska down to coastal Mexico down here. You are a mostly resident bird, staying kind of in the same area, nesting year after year in the same habitats, in hard cliffs and islands and rocky ecosystems, foraging offshore in kelp forests and elsewhere for all sorts of fish. And you're really important. You're an indicator species of environmental and climate change. And for my project, I was really interested in looking at how are birds a reflection of climate change and our changing world, what kind of conservation measures and science communication can we do to improve our understanding and our appreciation for these birds. Now, if anybody here knows me, you know that I am chronically obsessed with birds. But I didn't used to always be like that, but you could say that there were some warning signs. Now, seabirds and birds in general are sentinels of environmental change. They are an amazing and immediate reflection of changes when things are amiss in our environment. They have incredible, important ecosystems and economic functions, as well as importance to our mental health. The bird economy is upwards of $300 billion industry. Birds are pollinators. They're seed dispersers that cycle nutrients and carbon in our environments. They act as pest control and carry on cleanup crew, helping decompose and prevent disease outbreaks. Seabird guano is also a really important source of nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, in healthy marine ecosystems like kelp forests and coral reef systems and mangrove forests and other ecosystems. But birds are suffering. Birds are suffering all across the world. In the last 50 years, North America has lost over 3 billion birds. Globally, in that same time, seabirds around the world have dropped 70%. And the legacy of human emissions and climate change and ocean warming and sea surface temperature and the disruptions to prey availability and habitat have devastated bird populations across the world. The legacy of marine heat waves and El Nino events that cause stratification in the ocean that push prey further down to colder waters make it harder for birds to find their prey and survive. Heat waves like El Nino events in 2015, 2016's of the blob, and recent El Nino events have killed hundreds of thousands and millions of birds around the world. The effects of human disturbance and pollution, overfishing, bycatch, have also contributed heavily to disturbance. For the area that I'm interested in, I wanted to take a look at a part of the Pacific Flyway, a really crucial migratory pathway for birds, known as the Southern California Bight. The Southern California Bight is a really important part of the California current ecosystem from Point Conception all the way down to partway down to the Baja California Peninsula. And it's filled with all sorts of interesting bathymetry and upwelling and islands and nesting colonies for cormorants, and including in San Diego. And in this area, I wanted to understand and explore what the impacts are of climate-driven environmental variables on cormorant abundance and mortality in the Southern California Bight. To do this, I used several data sets. The first data set I used is a citizen science tool called eBird. You can download it after this presentation. It is a citizen science app and website where you can make an account and you go birding and you check off all the birds that you observe and submit it to this database of billions of checklists from around the world. And it's used in science and research and understanding changes and shifts in distributions and abundance of bird species around the world. The other bird-based data set I used for mortality is a beachcombers program called Beachcombers with the Fish and Wildlife Service that performs monthly dead bird beach surveys all along the coast from San Diego up to Monterey Bay. There are 4 counties in Southern California that I use data from for this. The main environmental variables that I wanted to understand the relationship between was sea surface temperature and sea surface temperature anomalies, the Oceanic Nino Index, which measures El Nino and La Nina events, and atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers are measured in integrated vapor transport and duration to get a monthly atmospheric river dose. And my connection here in the mechanism is the relationship between coastal precipitation and extreme precipitation events on potential runoff of pollution and pollutants that introduced terrestrial pathogens to marine life along the coast. So let's take a look at my study area. This is my study area along Southern California Bight that I split up into several different half-latitude transections, from 34.5 degrees north to 32.5. And within each of these half-latitude sections, I split up into different half-latitude by half-longitude grid cells. I used beachcombers data from Santa Barbara, Ventura, Los Angeles, and San Diego with different beach segments along the coast that do those volunteer-trained beach dead bird collection, and I've been able to participate in some of those volunteer efforts here in San Diego. The purple here is our marine protected areas. The blue diamonds are Brandt's cormorant nesting colonies along the coast, and you'll see here one of the only mainland colonies in La Jolla Cove right here. Within each of these grid cells, I was able to find monthly abundance, relative abundance of birds, monthly sea surface temperature anomalies and raw temperatures for each of those cells, and compare them to each other, as well as comparing these mortality data from the beachcomber surveys with local nearshore sea surface temperature variables. And from all this data, I made a lot of plots. I'm not going to get into any of these, except for this one. This is a plot. The top blue bars are measures of abundance, which is relative abundance, which is how many Brandt's cormorants are observed out of how many different checklists are submitted for a given area over time. And I was using monthly abundance turned into an annual average. And then in red, we have mortality. So these are dead birds per kilometer for every single year during my study period, which is from 2013 to 2025. These red shadow sections are El Nino events, strong El Nino events, and a La Nina event here, and these red bars on the bottom are marine heat wave events as well. This tells a really interesting story. This shows these really big rises and dips and rise and fall and rise again in abundance. And Brandt's cormorants are known as a boom or bust species. They do really well in cold years with high breeding success, and they tend to have lower breeding success in really warm years. And you see this trend, but it's kind of this one step forward, two step backs almost. You see also some interesting rises and falls of mortality events over time as well. I ran a lot of different tests. The main ecological test that I ran is a nonlinear analysis called a generalized additive model, or a GAM. And for this, I wanted to understand how and do sea surface temperature anomalies, oceanic Nino index information, atmospheric river dose, affect or predict Brandt's cormorant's abundance. And using this model, I found that these environmental variables explained about 39.8% of the deviance to a high significance for that test. I also ran a center of abundance test. Within each cell, I was looking at a month-by-month comparison of abundance and local sea surface temperature anomalies to understand is there a change in north to south or east to west movement and distribution of cormorants. And I did find with a high significance that as sea surface temperatures increase and anomalies increase, cormorants are more likely to move offshore westward, likely to perhaps look for other foraging opportunities when nearshore opportunities are affected by ocean stratification. There was no significant change in north to south distribution. I ran a bunch of tests with the local beachcombers data on local nearshore atmospheric river and sea surface temperature anomalies, and I won't get into the specifics of it all, but I did find that all 4 counties in different months of lag time, from 0 to 3 months after an anomaly, there was a significant correlation with increased mortality and sea surface temperature anomalies. My atmospheric river results were inconsistent, and as I continue this research for a scientific publication, I'm going to be looking at precipitation data as well, because atmospheric river doesn't guarantee that there's going to be precipitation. The next main big part of my research has been conducting in-person seabird and nest colony surveys in La Jolla Cove. La Jolla Cove is a really important environment in the ecosystem. It is a crucial habitat and stopover point for migrating seabirds all along the coast, and it provides cliff environments, beaches, islands, vegetation for all sorts of different species. It's also one of the only mainland Brandt's cormorant nesting colonies in the area. So to do this, I worked with a team of Leo and Haley, Leo Harris and Haley Pfeiffer, and Dr. Tammy Russell with the Vernay Lab, to lead teams of volunteer students from the UCSD Bird Club and conduct twice a month seabird surveys going from the children's pool all the way up to Goldfish Point, walking a couple hours every other week, early, sometimes too early in the morning for some of us, and counting all the individual birds of all the different species that we saw, just to understand what species and where and when throughout the year are using this habitat, what areas are most important. And this data also helps validate certain conservation measures, like the closure of Point La Jolla or the seasonal closure of Children's Pool Beach during the seal pupping season and the western gull nesting season. This was really, really fun. From this data, I made a couple of different plots. I'll share this one. This is over time for each of these survey dates, every 2 weeks from October to May, the total count of all the different species that we observed during each of these surveys. And you see that there are so many, over 1,000, 2,000 birds in some cases, that rely and pass through this habitat. And now we were only counting birds on shore, on land. That doesn't account for all the birds that were foraging, depending on the different tidal conditions that we were surveying during. But you can see in blue how Brandt's cormorants need this area, and they're here throughout the winter during the breeding season. Pelicans are here throughout the year, really increasing in the last few weeks as they migrate north. Elegant terns had a huge spike a couple of weeks ago as they migrate north, and over 18 different species that we observed. In addition to this total abundance, we're interested in what parts of the cove are most important. This is a moving time lapse of each over time from February to March, starting from October, of the spatial distribution of Brandt's cormorants going off of count, so 200, 400, kind of aligned with this section of the cove from the children's pool up to Goldfish Point. And you can see they're really using all the cliffs all along this area to rest and roost throughout the day, and also nest in our study area for the nest surveys. The nest surveys were some of the most fulfilling and exciting and rewarding parts of this research. Starting in early January, our team spotted the first eggs of a colony of over 70 different nests along the coast. We mapped out and labeled and numbered every single nest, and we went every single week for the last 5+ months, leading other students from the Bird Club, and kept track of how many eggs did they lay. Of those eggs, how many made it to a hatchling chick stage, downy chick, near fledged, and then how many left the nest to be a successful fledge from that nest. From this, I was able to find that on average, our section of nests had about a little under 2.76 eggs per pair, which is well within the normal range. But their fledgling success rate was slightly lower than I was hoping. It's within a normal expected range, but it is on the lower end of 1.07 fledglings per active breeding pair. Now, younger branch cormorants perform worse with breeding. Colony nests that are further away from the center on the edge also perform worse. And we don't have consistent annual data for this colony. So this is really important baseline data that we can hope to continue year after year going forward to understand how trends in ocean conditions and human disturbance and pollution and entanglement and bycatch are affecting the birds in this area and their survival rates. For me, none of this would have been complete without the importance of science communication and storytelling. I knew coming into this program that I wanted to use all sorts of different writing and visual communication to tell this story and just tell people more about birds. And I was fortunately able to do just that. I've been able to volunteer this past year with the San Diego Bird Alliance's Conservation Committee and was able to write an article for the upcoming quarterly edition of their magazine Sketches, highlighting and telling the story of our research in La Jolla Cove, which is a really important area for local tourism and habitat. I got interviewed by a local magazine and the newspaper about this research, and I've been working with our team with Dr. Tammy and Leslie Handa, Leo Harris, and Haley Pfeiffer to develop and design a seabird-focused interpretive sign in the Cove to kind of improve science communication. This has all been really exciting and really fulfilling. I have endless gratitude to Tammy Russell and Mark Merrifield, Leslie Handa and the San Diego Bird Alliance, and Andrew Meyer and Muriel Spooner. Special thanks to Leo and Haley, Connor Mack, Julie and Dan from Point Blue, and of course, Corey and Jada. And of course, all of you. You all have been so amazing throughout the year. It has been such a joy to be with all of you guys, and you inspire me every single day, from our baseball games to barbecues to holiday events and all sorts of adventures and activities throughout in between, and all of our boat rides together and beach sand sampling collection. And I hope you can continue to go forward and see all the birds you can, appreciate the birds that you can in your life and what they do for us and our mental health and our economy and environment and society, and find ways to contribute to citizen science and long-term data collection and conservation efforts to continue to protect bird habitat in our shared world. I wish you all a keep calm and bird on, and I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. Thank you. Oh, do we have time for questions?
Let's do one more. Let's do one question.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed learning about your research. I live in the Cove, so I see these birds all the time, and I think this research was super fascinating. I had a question particularly about the super El Nino that everyone's predicting. How do you think that is going to affect these bird migration patterns?
How do I think this upcoming super El Nino event will affect bird migration patterns? Probably not very good. It's probably going to continue to have pretty impactful effects on their food availability and prey distribution, and we'll probably can expect similar trends from past El Nino events, which include pretty severe unusual mortality rates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!